Good morning and welcome to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
It's Hump Day, and welcome aboard here on this Wednesday morn.
Yes, and we have some good news for Chatham County today. We just heard that Ann Levette of the school board, the superintendent of the school board,
Chatham County School Board,
is resigning.
Well, not school board, but Board of Education.
Yes.
She's the school superintendent.
Yes.
And even though she had just signed this multi-gazillion-dollar contract, 2-year extension on her contract, where we weren't paying, I don't think $350,000 or whatever she was making originally was enough. So I said, please take a few $100,000 more because you really deserve it.
Yes, but I think that this is good news. No one knows really why this came out yesterday.
But rumors are running rampant.
Yes, they are. I mean, there has been a lot of accusations of data manipulation and things like that when it comes to test scores. And also, there was some money spent for some of these critical race programs that have been
supposed to be there.
Yes, that have been put into the schools.
And they were denying it.
Yes, so a lot of things happening. And, something else changed this month. They have a new president as well, Roger Moss, and I think that he definitely runs things a little bit differently than Joe Buck, and I think maybe that could have had something to do with it, but all is speculation this morning. So.
Roger wants to see results. For those of you who are not familiar with Roger Moss, he is an educator extraordinaire. He has started several private schools, and he has outstanding track record of insisting on quality, insisting on outcomes.
His big thing is excellence.
Yeah,
expect excellence, and the kids will rise to the occasion.
Exactly.
So
and
I think that's good messaging.
Stuff.
Yes.
And so whether or not she wants to do that battle, I have no idea. And you were, of course, at his inauguration meeting, as it were, his debut, and he was a big hit. That's the first time I've seen a superintendent, when somebody comes up before the school board and they give their they have their 2-minute say or whatever it is, and usually it's like water off a duck's back, and these people leave and wait to come back to do another 2 minutes a month later. Yep. And that's it. Mm-hmm. That's the first time I've seen a superintendent, and President. I've seen a bunch of them here, ask for the transcript. Please leave that with us so we can look it over.
Yes, and respond. So I'm looking forward to the February school board meeting to see how he responds and how they address a lot of these issues, because before you basically would speak and they would say thank you, and you would never hear about the issue ever again. They're like, thank you for your time, but we don't care.
That's right. Yeah, we've already decided to do something else, and it's not going to make any difference. This time he said, leave that with us, and we'll take a look at it. So. We don't know exactly, but Dr. Levette's last day is going to be June 30th of this year, just as soon as basically the end of the school year.
Yes, so that means that they're going to need to find a replacement fairly quickly, Bill. So I think that it's something that we will watch here and make sure that person is vetted properly and hopefully wants to keep the school system as a learning system.
That will go on the nationwide search.
Yeah, we'll see how that ends up.
And remember, they're an equal opportunity employer.
Yes, absolutely.
That means that white people don't usually stand a chance. There's that.
Well, I heard that there might be some options in Chatham County. We'll see how it fares, but I think that this process will move fairly quickly since there's not a lot of time. So we'll keep an eye on this and let you guys know what we hear.
For sure.
And speaking of hearings, applying for an alcohol license is, should be pretty easy, right?
Yeah, it's pretty cut and dried. You establish a lounge, a bar, some sort of an eating establishment, and you might want to serve wine, also beer.
Yes.
Hard liquor is a different story. That's another hoop of fire to jump through. But usually, after a little while, you might be able to get one, depending on whether they decide what the need is. Yes, and
in District 3, in Savannah, their alderwoman, they, she says that her people do not want this type of establishment in their district, which. I can understand. I'm not necessarily super keen on a bar being in my neighborhood. However, I think that, something that happened at this last city council meeting was that someone has been trying to get a liquor license since March. They've jumped through a bunch of hoops. This is the third time they've appeared in front of the city council, and they have spent over $300,000 with the building, with, product, all of this stuff, and they're unable to open.
So why let it go this far if you are not going to approve their alcohol license?
Right. There's something wrong with the process, in my opinion, looking at it, that no one should be able to go this far and then be denied. And it's just, we don't want to approve it. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. The alderwoman in District 3 said that her people don't want it. Therefore, a lot of the city council did side with her and vote with her, and they voted no. But, there was a lot of accusations flying at the city council meeting as well. I think we have a clip of this.
Yeah, take a look.
I've called for the question.
I think that this is just egregious, and it's really sad that we're doing this to this particular business. They've been trying to get a license since March of last year. And here we are basing our decision as to whether or not these individuals get this license because of the personal vendetta that the 3rd District Alderwoman has against Black-owned businesses.
All right.
I'm just putting it out there.
Alderwoman Miller Blakely, that comment was inappropriate. Now,
It was true.
Listen. Each member of this body has the opportunity to vote their convictions, whether we like it or not. We are all entrusted with the ability to not only vote, but to respect everybody's right to have a vote. Just a moment ago, you voted against something because you chose to vote against it.
Because of this.
Well, but we respect your right to do so. And the fact of the matter is that at the end of the day, it is a race to get to 5, wherever that is. And so we just respect it, whether we dislike it, whether we agree with it or not.
Just remember in November, constituents.
Well, we remember today. But
remember in November.
Again, remember today that each of you have the ability and given the ability to vote your conviction. And so, again, we respect that.
Mayor
So the
Johnson,
motion,
I have a
no ma'am, we're voting. The motion is on the floor to deny the license. All
I
in
have a
favor?
question.
About this question? About
Yes.
this? Yes, ma'am.
I do, for clarity for the public. How much did you all invest in this business to get your product where you could open? From the lease to your inventory?
$130,000.
$330,000. And I want to just help the public understand where we are, Mr. Melder, because we really and truly, we cannot be a part of this type of abuse. In this level of what processes should citizens of Savannah who are seeking to open a business, whether it be alcohol establishment, well, let's just stick to alcohol establishment since that's what we're dealing with right now. What should they do first to assure that they don't come before us and get entangled in politics and lose over $300,000?
The answer is that those individuals work with city staff as it relates to alcohol, as it relates to zoning, on the front end before they get to this point. The city manager has gone through their processes, as you know. We've gone through all of those processes, and then it gets to be us. And I think that's the bottom line. I don't think that necessarily investment guarantees a license.
Right, so what I'm asking you, Mayor Johnson, is to express to the public, how do you prevent a situation like this from occurring? Because clearly, these people, not only do they have all of the requirements and they check all the boxes, they had extra boxes created for them that they also check. So what is it that we can do to tell the public to prevent this from happening again? Because this has only happened one other time since I've been in office, and it was with another African-American. No, it's actually 2 other times, 2 other African-American people. So can you tell me, do you just not have to not be black or what?
That's
Mr. Mayor,
inappropriate. Ladies and gentlemen. No, that's inappropriate.
Mayor Johnson did his best to navigate that. I will say it does get kind of, I think we're going to hear a lot more of this racial stuff coming from Keisha moving forward since she is running for mayor. And I do think that this is part of her big platform is supporting black businesses, which I think is a good thing, but that shouldn't be the only thing that we're worried about is black and white. I also, I agree with her. The process for these people, whether it was 130,000, which I think was what the person said, and then she said 300, over 300,000. So I'm not.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, the money's out there.
That's a lot of money that you fork over.
Yes.
To get things ready, and you're trying to cooperate with everything that the city wants you to do and all the ordinances that you have to agree to and things of that nature in order to get your licenses. And for some people, that's a life savings.
Yeah.
They don't have an extra 130,000 sitting around that they can just, for mad money and wait. And then you're told, that you can't open the place, which means that where's that 130,000 going to come from to be repaid if you're not allowed to operate your business. And this seems ridiculous on its level. And what amuses me, Brittany, is all the black people accuse others of being racist.
Yeah, there's only 2 white aldermen on the city council,
Mm-hmm.
and Keisha earlier in this interaction said,
Keisha Gibson Carter,
Yes.
who is running for mayor.
yes, and she's the alderwoman at large.
Alderwoman at large, District 2, I think. But
Yeah, and so she basically said that this administration is racist,
Mm-hmm.
and which I don't know how that could be when it's a majority black. So, and the woman in District 3, she is a black woman that represents that district. So her accusations don't really hold a lot of weight. I do think that, these are things that we need to look at, though. I don't think that the process should have gone on this long and allowed them to continue to make the concessions that the council asked for, and they still say, no, we're just not voting for this.
Savannah has a huge reputation, bad reputation about operating businesses. That they too many regulations, too many hoops of fire to jump through, that they're not business friendly, and I don't know where they think the money is coming from because they actually get paid through taxes from businesses, among other things. And it has been, Savannah's notorious. In fact, I think they have a woman that when you're trying to apply to a business, they got a woman that answers the phone. If you can get past her, she loses her job immediately. So there's that, and people have said how much easier it is. I had a guy that opened a business in Charleston, said it was a cakewalk in Charleston to get a business license and to operate his business. When had a friend who was operating a gun store here. Uniform shop and combination gun store. He wanted to expand his facility here in Savannah, and he said there were so many taxes that he had to pay, there were so many licenses that he had to get in order to expand. He was already operating here. It's called Patrick's, and so he went over to Garden City and opened the place there. And he said it was a lead pipe cinch. There was nothing to it, and Garden City doesn't have property taxes. So
that's
at
nice.
least they didn't at the time.
Well, I think the other thing is, earlier in this, exchange, one of the alderwomen asked, is this part of the Red Cup district, I think it's called, which is the open container where you can walk around. It is part of that district. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense why they couldn't have this there. And if that's the case, then they need to redistrict those lines, because otherwise this business fits into the model for that districting that they put in for people to walk around with alcohol. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, Bill.
All right. Meanwhile, things are going on over at Davos there. We have all the folks who want to tell you how to run your life. They operate their private jets. I think there's something like 1,200 or so private jets that have flown into Davos. We'll tell you more about that coming up next.
Byrne-Williams Insurance and Financial Services, a locally owned and operated insurance company, proudly serving the Savannah community with integrity, security, and trust. Experience the power of the Shield since 1934. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
At Get Real America, we'd like to thank the Southeast Georgia Republican Assembly for all their efforts on making a difference in our communities.
When you're looking to buy a business or sell a business, the experts at Best Business Brokers have you covered. Whether you're ready to cash in on your years of hard work or you're taking that first step in buying a business of your own, they're here to guide you through the process and make sure you get the best outcome possible. By having Best Business Brokers assist you when you buy a business or sell a business, they handle the legwork of the intricate process. This ensures a smooth transition of ownership, allowing you to get to work immediately or receive payment for your business as soon as possible. With base operations in Savannah and Charleston, they service all of Georgia and South Carolina. If you're considering starting a business here, the mild winters and 5-tiered economic areas make these the perfect places to do so. If you're ready to buy a business or sell a business, then you're ready to contact Best Business Brokers. Visit their website at b3brokers.com or call at 912-349-0940.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
I'm Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
Glad to have you aboard on Hump Day here, and it is the 18th day of January already, zipping right along here.
Yes, and we announced some good news. Ann Levette is retiring June 30th of this year, so we'll be on the lookout for who is up for that position.
School superintendent, we'd like to see, of course, there'll be the nationwide search. I think I'll apply for the job. The pay's pretty good.
Yep.
And you don't have
Yeah,
to look at
Bill.
me like you don't have to do much.
Yeah.
All right.
Let me know how it goes.
Meanwhile, speaking not being able to do much except run your lives, that there's this big World Economic Conference that is going on over in Davos, and the hypocrisy of this organization, especially when you have a guy in charge named Klaus. This guy looks like a Bond villain, as Laura Ingraham said last night.
Well, not only that, he has no political power. He's not an elected official for
Right,
any government.
exactly.
Like, I'm like, how is this guy even relevant to any conversation that we're having?
He's got money. If you've ever seen Fiddler on the Roof is one of my favorite plays, and also the music is fantastic. And there's a song in there that the main character sings called "If I Were a Rich Man," and he was talking about what I would do if I had a lot of money. And one of them he said, and if I were rich, people would be coming to me for advice. And he said, it wouldn't matter if I was right or wrong. When you're rich, they think you really know.
They think you're the authority if you're rich.
Exactly right. Yeah. So we have. So I give you Bill Gates. I give you old Boltneck himself, John Kerry, who served in Vietnam, and I give you Klaus. The Fuhrer would be pleased.
Yeah, he just seems like an evil person. Just
Exactly, but that's probably because he's an evil person.
Yes.
And they're trying to run your lives. The latest, of course, is taking away your gas stoves, which is one of the things that they're trying to do. But if you go out to their airport, it's hard to see the runway or the tarmac anymore because there's so many private jets on it. Now you can get there by train, you can get there by bus, you can get there by regular passenger flight. Just on commercial airlines, but no, you have to. And I haven't seen Leonardo DiCaprio. Is he there?
I have not heard.
If
He's
he
definitely
were, you'd
not
know.
on. Yeah, he's definitely not on my radar. But I also heard that they're flying in a large amount of hookers into Davos this week.
Yeah, when you have big conventions and gatherings, all of a sudden the ladies of the evening seem to the business seems to go up.
It's interesting, Bill. These are our betters, right?
That's right. Yeah,
they're supposed to be the ones we look up to, which is very sad.
And don't do it the way we're. They're in charge of running your life, and by the way, you get to pay for it.
And that's so exciting. And our governor is there, which I believe he speaks today, so we will have coverage on that as soon as we're able to get some information on what he's speaking there about. I'm quite interested because I don't know why he's there.
Why the governor of Georgia, Brian? I don't know why you're there.
Yeah,
Really.
but we have questions.
We'll find out. But there are some interesting things going on there.
Yes, and one of them, there are two clips that we'd like to show you guys, and one of them is of Joe Manchin, and he's talking about the First Amendment and kind of the issues with it, and the other one is Maria Salazar, who she claims to be a Republican, but one of the things she's talking about is that we should not turn our backs on these illegal immigrants. We should welcome them. So quite interesting. I think we have those clips ready to go.
Yeah, we're coming up. Yeah, and why are we responsible for these illegal aliens? Why aren't we taking care of the legal people that we have here that are on the street? How about the homeless vets that served our country, gave their lives, or at least volunteered to, or gave part of their bodies for the freedoms that we enjoy, and yet we have homeless vets on the street, which is incorrigible.
Well, the Darien Gap, if you know where that is, the United Nations is down there facilitating these people getting on boats. They are giving them condoms and birth control because they know what these women are about to go through. And the fact that they are just willing to send these people on one of the most dangerous journeys that have been reported on, I don't know how people can claim that they are a human rights person if they're allowing this to happen or they're cheering this on. So very frustrating about the border. So I think we have those clips now.
Yeah.
The problem that we have is the open press system and basically all the platforms. So if you're able to have 5 platforms, social platforms, that you can basically personify the extremes, somebody who is extremely right or extremely left, and it seems like that is the majority speaking. They're not the majority, but they're basically driving everybody to make a decision. What side are you on? Are you on this side or this side? And in America, there's only one side, the American side. It's not the Republican side or Democrat. We should be coming together to solve the problems from a different angle.
Overhaul of the immigration system, because not only we need
So that was Joe Manchin, and he's talking about the First Amendment there. While I do agree with him in certain ways as far as they are, because of the algorithms that Facebook and Instagram and these companies are allowed to have, it does promote extremism on both sides because they are validating your opinions by only showing you the things that validate you. So I do think that that is creating extremism, which I agree with him on. However, I think that the issue is that they're not solving this problem. They're allowing it to continue, and it's damaging our youth from what we've seen.
Yeah, and our youth don't need any more damaging than what they're doing already, and we've got a huge problem on our hands. Yes. So what are we worried about here? Whether or not people have gas stoves or not? We have a lot more fish to fry, so to speak, to mix metaphors. And how those regulations and clearances for your pipelines that you wanted in West Virginia going, Joe? Since you went along with the Democrats on that $1.7 trillion disaster that you signed on with just a few weeks ago.
Well, I hope that he is going to be primaried. West Virginia is one of the reddest states in the country. And the fact that he keeps getting elected is beyond me. I cannot figure that out. But I've also heard that a lot of people in West Virginia don't really follow politics, and the people that are wanting to get into politics are liberals. Conservatives don't traditionally want to get involved in government. They want to be left alone, which then allows us to have Democrats in charge of us in our local cities, which is a problem.
That's the reason to have him. You want the guy in charge who really doesn't actually want to be there, would rather be somewhere else. So he wants to get the job done and get the hell out.
Yep.
So meanwhile, we have
Maria Salazar, and she's a Republican representative from Florida, of all places, talking about how we should be nice to the illegals.
Yeah.
overhaul of the immigration system. Because not only we need those hands, like the Congress, like a senator was saying, but we need to also give dignity to those people who are in the country. And those are the people that I represent. We're talking about 13, 15 million people who are, most of them Hispanics, I would say 85%, who speak my language, look like me, and sound like me, that are contributing with the economy of this country, and they live in the shadows. So it's time to seal the border, like she said, put order, let's see who comes in and who doesn't, and then turn around and give dignity. That doesn't mean path to citizenship. That means to include them and make them dignified members of our community.
Thank you.
Well, if that ain't talking out of both sides of your mouth, I don't know what is.
Well, and I think the problem with this too, Bill, is that the money doesn't stay in the U.S. People are coming here, they're working, you know, jobs, but that money is going back to Mexico. It is not staying in our economy. So that's
and a lot of it's paid under the table, maybe paid in cash or whatever. So they're not paying taxes.
No.
And what obligation do we have for somebody who is here illegally in the first place? This is just beyond the pale that we continue to support this. And what's interesting, of course, is he mentions the fact that she's Hispanic, so they look like me and they talk like me and they speak that same language that I do. Well, quit standing up for those people just because you are, quote, one of them. Geraldo Rivera is one of the worst at this, where when somebody who's illegally here in the country killed somebody in a car accident, and I had a good friend down in Brunswick who was killed by an illegal alien in a car accident about 10 or 12 years ago, and it was devastating to that family. She was a wonderful person. This guy shouldn't have been here in the first place. And from people like Salazar and Geraldo Rivera, they counter with the argument, well, we have drunk drivers here in America too. We have Americans who are drunk drivers. We have Americans who commit crimes. I think, well, do we need to import any more of them? They shouldn't have been here in the first place. And Sally Jenkins might still be alive today if that guy hadn't been here. And and we're talking about thousands of other parents and brothers and sisters and husbands and wives who have lost loved ones because of people who weren't supposed to be here in the first place. And we take them out and they come right back in. It's ridiculous.
Bill, and I think that the border is going to continue to be a huge issue.
Number
one, we have so many people coming over, and let's say 2024 comes, we get a Republican president who seals the border. What do we do? Do we deport all those people? I mean, how do we track all these people? Number one, we know that they're not tracking them. They're not keeping any tabs on these people. So I don't even know how we go about solving this after we seal the border. We're going to have.
Well, that's the first thing. In first aid, what's the prime directive? Stop the bleeding. Mm-hmm. No matter what the wounds are, no matter what treatment they need, the first thing you do is stop the bleeding. If your basement's being flooded, you don't start bailing out the water with the bucket. You turn the water. You get to the source of where the water's coming in and stop that first. And then we worry about the next phase, and it can be done maybe on an incremental basis. When we find out these people are not here legally, they go through the deportation process.
Well, and I think that's going to become a huge issue because now we're going to be,
sure is.
Racist and all this stuff when they never should have been here in the first place. Especially, I saw a video yesterday of a Hispanic man destroying a Target, throwing things, breaking things, and people were just like, "What do we do? He's out of control." And he was basically yelling, "Well, I'm Hispanic, I'm a Mexican," and
so.
Right, but when you have these kind of people in the country that probably shouldn't be here, I mean, what do you do?
Yeah, well, one of them would be like, enforce laws against them. Start enforcing our laws. Meanwhile, we talk about farming and things of that nature, and how necessary it is to have private farms these days and not being taken over by these agriculture conglomerates and things of that nature to control our food and the food we eat, what goes into it. We're going to talk to you coming up next. We're going to hear from a gentleman and his son who are Army vets, or at least John is the dad in this case, who is a chaplain in the Army Reserve, and he's starting something for Army vets who are coming back with PTSD and things of that nature, but also sustainable farming.
Yes.
Tell you about it next.
We'll be right back.
At Get Real America, we want to make sure that the real story gets out, and you can help us as a sponsor or as an advertiser to make sure that that word does get out to the community.
Be a sponsor and support your local community here at Get Real America.
I don't think it's an accident that I ended up writing music for a living, because I think I lived in a house where I saw how deeply it affected everyone in the house. And just how much everyone defined themselves by the music they listened to.
Music as a framework, I think, gave my parents my identity from a young age. You can like any music that you want if it makes you feel happy. And now when I hear certain songs, I think of them, and I think of them in their happiest state, and it makes me happy.
If they seem like they're having trouble talking about something, I try to tell them about a time when I felt something similar.
Whatever the issue was, we would tell them the pros and cons and how important it was, and that they had come to us because we could always help them. I think the real important point, we always told them, no matter what you do, no matter what happens, we will help you through it no matter what it is.
Byrne-Williams Insurance and Financial Services, a locally owned and operated insurance company, proudly serving the Savannah community with integrity, security, and trust. Experience the power of the Shield since 1934. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Welcome back to Get Real America.
Bill Edwards.
I'm Brittany Brown.
And we're talking about sustainable farming, but this is coming from a little different angle, and from a gentleman who was in the service, got out, got back in. It's a winding path that, but he feels like that this is a calling that he's had from God. He's become an Army chaplain, and just a fascinating character. John Monahan and his son Matthew were here yesterday talking about sustainable farming and what they plan to do to help out veterans with PTSD, among other things. She had some experience in podcasting and things like that. He said, "You're available," and then all of a sudden this place that hadn't been available for 30 years came available.
Wow.
So we talked them down a little bit on the rent, and so here we are.
Praise the Lord.
Now amen to that. Kevin, what are they? Your new.
You were slated to speak at a couple of events.
Well, as we say in the biz, we're having some technical difficulties.
Yes, sorry about that, guys.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have that story for you guys tomorrow. But they were so lovely. Him and his son, so polite, and just, I think his story is just one of sacrifice. I mean, he sacrificed a lot he had his own business, and now he's transitioning into this, big vision that he has for this nonprofit. And I'm excited to see where he goes with it, and I'm excited for you guys to see that interview. It was very touching.
Yeah, this is something that he feels is a calling from the Lord. He felt like that he became a chaplain. He thought that he was too old to become a chaplain and to get into the service, but he found out that was not the case. Went to got through the chaplaincy program, and of course got his ministerial degree, and the rest, as we say, is history. But what he is doing now to help out and come up with sustainable farms. The son Matthew that you saw there briefly also is going to be working with his dad on the farm. But one of the things that you think about Georgia, you think about peanuts as far as our agriculture goes, and agriculture is our biggest business here. Starts at the top of the list with chickens. We're the biggest chicken exporter in the world. We're, I think, second in peanuts. Then comes pecans, or pecans as we say here in the sunny South, and also cotton, things of that nature. Well, Matthew is actually looking to grow mushrooms, and he wants to get these, these really highly nutritious mushrooms that he's going to be growing. And he said the good thing about that is you can use the compost from like cotton fields, because when the cotton is harvested, there's a bunch of just crap laying around at the end. There's little pieces of cotton here and there. He said you can get all that together, compost it, and it's ideal for growing mushrooms.
Oh, interesting.
So it's one of those sustainable things. It's one of the circle of life, and also talking about the hydroponics, which is a great way to grow food, because you are growing like in a warehouse, and all the plants and everything are being fed through tubing that contains all the nutrients that a plant needs. So you're growing absolutely perfect plants.
Yeah, and I think that, this is what our show's about, is community. And they're really focused on locally sourcing a lot of food for people in the area, which I think is so important, because I don't think that we focus enough on that, especially when we're looking at food shortages. We see that the cost of eggs is like, depending on what kind of eggs you get, $7, $8 for a dozen of eggs, which is crazy. It used to be one of the cheaper foods that was highly nutritious. We're seeing a lot of the shortages, and I think that going back local and people volunteering and things like that, and being able to almost barter in that way, I think is very appealing.
You're seeing a lot of that with local restaurants where they're calling about farm to table. We have a lot of farms here in Statesboro. There's one across the river in Ridgeland, South Carolina, and a lot of the restaurants here are contracting with those farmers, so that when we get your salad that comes along, that lettuce and all of the arugula or whatever it is that you like in your salad is there. It was grown. It wasn't sitting in a warehouse for several weeks and then on the shelf at a grocery store for another week or two. It was actually might have been growing in the field like day before yesterday. So you talk about that. I know I have a friend who has what's called nearby here in a little town called Sunbury, has the Sunbury Crab Company, and he and his sons go out and they go crabbing in the morning. So if you're having crab legs or whatever that night, that crab was swimming in the river that morning. And it's amazing how much better the fresh food tastes.
And how much more nutritious do you think it is?
Much more nutritious. In fact, most experts will tell you, food experts will tell you, that the best vegetables, you ought to get frozen vegetables at the store, because those are picked and flash frozen almost immediately, and keep their freshness, their nutrition, much more than the ones that are open-ended in the produce section.
Oh, so, interesting. I've not heard that.
Oh, yeah. So they frozen vegetables, and usually because they're flash frozen, there's not a lot of sodium. There's not a lot of sodium and added
preservatives in there. Yeah.
That are in there as well. So kind of neat.
Yeah, I love that. And like I said, I think that this is the direction that we should all be moving into, is going more local, supporting local businesses, including our own, Bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you talked about when you're developing communities. Every time I turn around, when I grew up here, if you drove from Savannah to Hilton Head, you passed darn near nothing. When you went through Bluffton city limit signs were on the same post. So there was just fields of now it looks like one entire big city. And every time it seems like every time I take a trip over there, there's another home development going on. Well, I said what you can do is, rather than just pave over all of this land, is set aside a section where you can grow crops. And this community can kind of pitch in, kind of like we did it when we first established this country. When John Smith, told the folks, says, "Look, if you don't work, you don't eat," and it worked wonders. And
we should go back to that policy.
Have your own little farm. You could be growing corn and all sorts of vegetables there, and have that farm. You talk about farm to table. You can just go out, pick the corn, and cook it. I can remember going up to some cousins of some sort. I never did the family tree there. Had a nice farm in Swainsboro where they grew cotton and raised chickens and stuff. And my aunt would go out there, and she would. That's the first time I realized what the term "running around like a chicken with your head cut off" actually meant. She would go out there, she'd whack the chicken's head off. They'd run around for about 5 minutes, and then she'd come in, pluck it, cook it, and the chicken. When you talk about fresh fried chicken, we had it, and it was delicious. So.
I bet it was. I would not like to see that, but I will say they do have a lot of technology that helps with like the plucking of the chicken. They have a machine that you can put it in now and all the feathers come off, which I think has been a huge issue for people. They're like, I don't want to have to deal with plucking feathers, but there is a machine for that. So I think that modern technology can also help us in this arena and keeping it local.
Yeah, especially as much chicken as we consume.
Yes.
Pork too, for that matter. Good
Very
old
true.
barbecue. All right. Also, coming up next.
We're going to be talking about some of the censorship that we're seeing. And, Kyle Rittenhouse, he's a controversial figure because of the situation
Because he defended himself.
Yeah, in Kenosha. And people have been horrible to him. I think that they've made his life very, very difficult. I think that there have been many blessings that have come to him as well that he may not have experienced in his life without, what happened. So we're going to be seeing a clip from him and some of the challenges that he is facing these days.
That's next.
Gracias. Thank you.
What's wrong, mijo?
Donating to a pet's medical care can keep families together. Pets and people belong together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Bernard Williams Insurance and Financial Services, a locally owned and operated insurance company, proudly serving the Savannah community with integrity, security, and trust. Experience the power of the Shield since 1934. For more information, go to thepoweroftheshield.com.
Well, hi there. Welcome back to Get Real America. I'm Bill Edwards. Surprise, surprise. We have, along with Brittany Brown.
Hi,
Hey.
I'm back on screen.
Yeah, she's here. We're talking about censorships and things of that nature. Before we get into that, there is a story that is coming out of from WTOC, that's the local CBS affiliate here, that one of the men convicted of murdering Ahmaud Arbery is going to serve his life sentence in the state's medical prison. 67-year-old Gregory McMichael has been permanently assigned to the Augusta State Mental Prison, and although unclear why he was, what his medical condition is, because that stuff is supposedly a secret, he has been assigned to that hospital for the remainder of his days.
Oh, such a very tragic story, just all the way around.
Absolutely senseless. There was absolutely no reason. They could have stopped this guy to make a citizen's arrest or whatever, or told him, hey, we saw you in that place, don't go in there anymore, or whatever. They didn't have any business. They were trying to be do-gooders or something along those lines. And it ended very, very badly. And they are paying the ultimate price for it, and deservedly so. None of that was, it was not necessary to kill this young man by any stretch of the imagination. So. But McMichael's health condition became a topic also for during the trials as well. But it's finally been established whatever that he has. It could be could even be a terminal type condition. But he has been assigned to the State Medical Hospital in Augusta. which is very near where Augusta is, where the University of Georgia's medical school is. So they have a lot of facilities and help sort of nearby.
Very interesting, and just a tragic story again. But it's and we were talking about Kyle Rittenhouse right before the break,
Mm-hmm.
and I do follow him. I'm not going to lie, like on the social media accounts, and I see so many comments of how he's a murderer, and I mean, the amount of hate he gets for the situation he was in, and regardless of how you feel about it, he defended himself, and the people that were there. One was a pedophile. I mean, they had all been in prison. All of these people were not on the up and up either. So I don't understand how you could be so hateful towards him if you saw any of the video footage from that night.
The way that the social media as well as the lamestream media continues to vilify people like this is beyond the pale. I've noticed even in our television shows. And FBI recently, as well as some others, when a good Samaritan has a gun and stops a crime, they do a scene in the TV series making that the bad guy that he missed. He shot somebody else intending to shoot the bad guy. So this so-called they even use it kind of vitriolically, saying a good guy with a gun. So Kyle Rittenhouse was defending himself. Those guys attacked him. And by the way, this is one of the other stories that goes on with the media. All three of those guys were white.
Yes, they were.
That he shot.
Yes, they were.
Killed two of them and severely injured another one with his arm. You would be amazed at the people that thought they were all black, because of the way it was reported in the media, in the foreign press. They got I think somebody said that they were in London or something, and that the subject came up about him, and they said he said there's a racist guy that killed those three black guys, and somebody said, wait a minute, they were all white, and this person was shocked that they were.
Well, and I think the media has a lot to do with why he's had such a hard time.
Exactly.
And why his trial was, his trial was terrible.
It was.
I'm just grateful that he was found not guilty and that, he's
Yeah,
able
we had
to
some
live his
jurors
life.
that
Yes.
actually knew what they were. And we have the video.
That's the biggest thing. There's so much video from different angles.
He's out there. He was hired to help a friend of his at a used car lot or something,
Yep.
to kind of protect the cars from being vandalized. And he was out there, and it was with his I think it was his father's AR-15 that he had, and he was just there. He was just trying to protect that. He wasn't going out trying to attack anybody. They came after him.
Yep, and he was also there. He had some sort of license to where he could help people with first aid and things like that.
He was a lifeguard.
Yeah. So he was also helping people while he was there. So
Exactly.
he was trying to do the right thing, and I think that it did get out of hand. But also, those people attacked him, and it was either going to be his life or their life. And I think that we would all make that decision.
He tried. In fact, he got medical attention for the guy that he didn't kill. He was trying to. He was trying to help even the people. He didn't know the other two guys were dead necessarily at the time, but he was trying to. He actually got help for the guy that who he shot in the arm, and that guy's still loose, by the way.
Yes, and which is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a quick clip of Kyle Rittenhouse talking about his challenges in setting up events.
Yeah.
You were slated to speak at a couple of events as the new media personality you are. What happened to those engagements, Kyle?
So I was supposed to be giving a speech at Southern Pub Brewery with Defiance Press, and they booted us because the woke mob found out I posted about it. I tried to promote it to get people to come and hear about censorship and the Second Amendment, and they didn't like that. They bent to the woke mob, and they said, we're canceling this event. Thank goodness we were able to reschedule. It's now going to be at Lone Star Convention Center in Conroe, Texas, where you can come and watch me speak. But just recently, as of this morning, the Oak Room at the Ventian canceled us and bent to the woke mob, saying we aren't going to host you guys anymore.
So two events in Vegas were canceled because people decided to call and complain and cause issues. And I think that that's something that people that own businesses, if they agree to an event like that, they need to follow through.
Exactly.
It should not matter. Let those people do what they're going to do. Call the police. Hold them accountable. I think that more people respect businesses that stand up and say, you know what, we have free speech in this country, we've scheduled this event, and we're going to follow through on our commitments. We need to stop caving to these people that are probably less than 10% of the population.
Well, and he tried to, I don't know if he finally got in, but he tried to enroll at Arizona State University, and there was all sorts of campus protests on that as well.
I don't think that he is going to school at this point, from what I've heard, and his life is probably bigger than he could have ever imagined at this point. And he's
financially he's in pretty good shape too, because he won some lawsuits.
well, he's being sued civilly now, so he's actually spending a lot of money on that. And he said that it's very expensive, and he also has some lawsuits, I believe, against CNN and some of these places that for defamation. And I believe there's also one against our president Joe Biden as well, because he spoke out on that.
Well, they ought to be picking up the tab for his legal expenses. That's for damn sure.
Absolutely.
Let me give you an example of how things have changed, or how we look at things here, maybe in the sunny South, as opposed to somewhere else. If you put your helmets on, I'll tell you a war story. When the year before I was to go to Ole Miss, the university invited Bobby Kennedy to speak on campus. Bobby Kennedy was a senator from New York at the time, and this is the fall of 1965. He was invited to speak, and he had been the attorney general who ordered the troops onto the campus in 1962, when James Meredith became the first black student to attend the university. So you might not say that Bobby Kennedy was a popular figure in Mississippi, or especially at the University of Mississippi. And the media was there in droves, of course, hoping that somebody was going to take a swing at him, or throw something, or protest, or turn. The audience, I heard audio tapes. I didn't have a video in those days, portable video, and I listened to the reception that he got, and I remember seeing some of the news reports on it as well when I was a senior in high school. They treated him, they absolutely rolled out the red carpet. He was treated, in fact, he even mentioned it, how pleasant it was to be there, and how impressed he was with the reception that he'd gotten from the students and from the faculty. He gave a pretty darn good speech. The young people sat there, they listened very attentively, they laughed at his jokes, they applauded to some of his lines, and he had a terrific speech there as well. Now, the young man who introduced him was amazing. He said that a few weeks ago, George Wallace, who was governor of Alabama at the time and was infamous also for his staunch segregation stands, the one that stood in the doorway at the University of Alabama, refusing to let the first black person in, and said he was invited to speak at Yale University a few weeks ago. And because they said that he doesn't agree with our mores and values here, we don't think that he should be speaking here, and his invitation to speak was withdrawn. And he said, today we have Senator Bobby Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, here with us, who is going to speak to us, who was the Attorney General who ordered the troops onto our campus 4 years before. Never let it again be said that Mississippi is a closed society. Way to go. And they treated him well. I can remember going up to Georgia Southern a few years ago when they had Bill Ayers speaking up there. The kids were polite. They listened to all of his communist propaganda and garbage. They didn't throw, unlike when Ann Coulter goes to speak somewhere, they didn't throw food at him or anything of that nature. They were polite. They asked questions. I got a chance to ask questions, question him on asking him, why he shouldn't have been executed for treason 20 years before. He said, because I introduced myself, I said, I'm Bill. He said, oh yeah, like me. I said, well, that's about where the similarity ends.
Well, I think that you bring up a really good point. I think in the South, I think manners are something that are instilled in the children here.
Yeah.
And yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, which you and I had a conversation last week about that, about someone that was offended by being called ma'am, which I will say it makes me feel old. I prefer miss, but I appreciate the sentiment. I think it's very respectful. And I do think that that's something, tolerance is not taught. And we're getting to the point where we can no longer tolerate each other. And that's a big problem.
It is. And you know what I get compliments for all the time? Is that people still, I still get, when people are watching, I still get comments from people when I open the door for my wife to get in the car, or when, look, he opens the door for her. I was like, my father would have handed me my head if I hadn't opened the door for my stepsister, or for a lady who might have been going with us, or we were walking up to some public building, whether it was a hotel or something like that, opening the door for a lady. And I remember several times where we were on an elevator, and elevator stops, and we're on our floor, and we're about to get off, but there were some ladies on there as well. If I put 1 foot forward, Dad's arm was like whack. Ladies first.
Well, and even when you and I go places together, you open my door, and I think we had the conversation of like, I don't know how to respond to that, because men my age do not treat women like women. I think they're scared of it, number one, and number two, women shame them for behaving that way, which I think is a huge culture problem. And men need to step up and just say, you know what, if you don't like it, then I guess we shouldn't date.
Yeah, I like, and of course I like the opposite, where the girl is sitting in the car and the guy's walking into the restaurant or into the hotel or something, and she's just sitting there in the car. He said, "Aren't you coming?" She said, "You're not opening the door for me."
Exactly. We need to train men how to treat us as well. I think that that's another thing. But I am a big fan of gender roles. I know that that's unpopular these days, Bill, but I do think that that's something that we fight against. I think it's natural instinct. And I think that women have really fought against that. And I don't think many women are happy being the masculine person instead of allowing their partner to be that. So
sometimes you just can't deny biology, As hard as they try, you just can't deny it. We were created, man and woman, for a reason. There's no asterisks in the Bible indicating anything else.
Which is also controversial. So we're full of controversy this morning.
Yeah, we've even had some places that are trying to ban the Bible. I think one state legislature has either in Oregon or California, as you might imagine, maybe Washington.
Yes.
But it's nowhere around here. But what a surprise! Well, we've done all the damage we can do from here this morning.
Yes. So thank you for tuning in. Remember to like and follow our Facebook page, our YouTube page. That really helps us out. And thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you guys tomorrow.